Hello friends, my name is Bhuvan Apurvajha and this is the inaugural class of Indian Express Explained. We have diverged a bit from the previous daily news analysis that we're doing. Now it will be a lot more focus oriented from the examination point of view, and our focus primarily will be the express page of Indian Express, again which has gained a lot of relevance, I'm sure you will agree, in the recent times because of the information that it carries that is specifically relevant for the UPSC examination. Not just that, besides say the Indian Express explained page, we will also take a look at the other major news that we used to take a look at in the previous avatar of this program. Okay, so let me welcome all those of you who are joining me for the very first time. May I please request you to go ahead and leave me a like and go ahead and share this class with those of your friends who will find this entire exercise useful, right? Okay, let's get started. Bulbul, Logeshwari, Dr. Sriram, Coder, Swati. Guys, thank you so much for joining in this inaugural episode. I'm very happy with your presence. Okay, so let's get started because this is the new beginning, a fresh chapter. And this allows us to go ahead and rededicate ourselves with renewed energy to make sure that you get the most informative content in a most concise manner that is relevant for you in your preparation for the civil services examination. Right? Okay. So without wasting much time now, let's get into it. The first topic that I have for you today from the Indian Express explained page is that of the legend of Samakka Sarakka. Okay. Now, if you have gone through the Express newspaper, if you have it with you, good, because we'll be able to discuss the various facets around this article. If you do not have it, don't worry. We'll be going ahead and taking a look at it regardless. Okay. So let's understand first the legend of Samakka Sarakka, or also known as Samakka Saralamma. Right. So what exactly, these are deities, these are gods, but what exactly is the story behind the legend of these two deities? Okay, so let's go ahead and understand that in the most simple manner. And so let me first take you to Telangana. Okay, in Telangana, we are looking at a place called Mulugu. Okay, now the Mulugu or the Medavaram district. Okay, this is exactly the place marked in red, known as Medavaram. So this particular jatra, say like the Pandharpur Wari, right? We have gone ahead and discussed, say, about Pandharpur Wari in the past. For those of you who are watching this live, can you very quickly let me know which state am I talking about when I talk about the Pandharpur Wari Yatra, right? So similar to the Pandharpur Wari Yatra, we have this Samakka Sarakka Yatra that starts from Medavaram in Telangana. Okay. Now, if you are looking at the screen, so I have two female deities that are portrayed here, and this is the mother-daughter duo. Okay. So Samakka is my mother, and Sarakka is the daughter. She is also known as Saralamma. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at the facts of this case. So now this commemorates the fight of a mother and her daughter, Samakka, and as I told you, Saralamma, against unjust law. Right? So this is based on an actual event that occurred, And so we are going to take a look at what exactly is the story of this mother-daughter duo. What are the tribes that go ahead and take part in this particular yatra? And how is it gaining significance? In fact, you'll be very surprised to know that this particular yatra is also known as the Kumbh of the South. Okay? Such is the congregation of people that come together during the Saramma Saralakka Yatra, that you are looking at it being named as the second most populous congregation of people right after the Kumbh Mela. Right? You're absolutely correct. Your neighbor and Koda and Akansha, Pandharpur Wari is from Maharashtra. Good. Okay. So let's look at it. The fight of a mother and daughter against unjust law. Now, the mother, Samakka, she was married to Pagididda Raju, who was the tribal chief of the Koyas. Now, if you straight away understand, and if you ever come across this particular tribe, the first thing that should come to your mind, does the name Alluri Sitaram Raju come to your mind? Does the Rampa rebellion come to your mind? Okay, because the Koya tribe is one of the key facets of both of these topics that I just mentioned. And why did that rebellion happen? If you go ahead and trace the roots of the Rampa rebellion, yes, or the story of Alluri Sitarama Raju, what you realize is that it was essentially to do with this particular tribe practicing Podu. Okay. Podu is essentially nothing but what we know of today as shifting cultivation. Okay. I'm sure you will agree with this that Podu is in fact what we know as jamming or shifting cultivation. Okay. So let's look at the facts now. Samakka, the mother, she had 2 daughters and 1 son. Sarakka, Nagulamma and Jampana, he is the son. The other 2 are daughters. Okay. And also a son-in-law, Govinda Raju. Now at that time, this particular area, which is the focus of our interest, what you find is that this was under the reign of the Kakatiyas. Yes, again, we'll take you back to your medieval history. Kakatiyas, their headquarter of their kingdom was in present-day Warangal. Now, the story so goes that King Pratap Rudra of the Kakatiyas, he imposes a tax on the Koya tribe. Okay. Now, which obviously the Koya tribe was unable to pay. Now, this infuriates the king. King Pratap Rudra goes ahead and attacks this entire region, the entire group of Koya people. Okay. So, thus, you have a war that's broken out now. On one side, you have King Pratap Rudra with all his might. On the other side, you have the Koya tribe with whatever little resources that they have. Right? So, Pagididda Raju, the husband, and Saralamma, the daughter, they are killed in battle. The son, Jampana, he is mortally wounded, and then he goes into Sampangi Vagu. Vagu is nothing but a stream. Okay? So, the story so goes again that the son, once he goes into the stream, such is the loss of blood that the stream turns red. Right? Which is why you go ahead and understand that this stream has been renamed as Jampana Vagu in honor of the sacrifice of the son. Right? Thereafter, you have the mother now, Samakka. She retires to a hill called Chilakka Gutta and turns into a vermilion jar, Kumkum Bharani. Okay. Now, this is what exactly is mentioned as a part of the folklore, that she retreats to the hills to escape from the attack of King Pratap Rudra. Okay. And then she turns herself into a vermilion jar of sorts, a casket of sorts. Okay. And she also gives a curse to the Kakadiya kingdom that you will not have a prosperous time ahead. Right? So, this is the story of Samakka and Saralakka. Now, what exactly is the yatra about? So, the yatra which is in Telangana, this is firstly biennial in nature, which means once every 2 years. Okay? Once every 2 years, you have this particular yatra that is undertaken. It begins at Medaram in Telangana, and the ritual, now the Koya people believe that Samakka and Saralakka were the representatives or the incarnations of Adi Shakti. Okay. Which is why you go ahead and find that the Koya priests, the Koya people, revere these 2 deities. Now, this yatra initially, if you look at the history, what you find is in around 1998. Okay. This yatra had close to around 1,000 people, not more than 2,000 to 3,000 people. Okay. But from there on, up till 2023, how is it that it has become so big that it is being called as the Kumbh of the South? Yes. What has changed? So what has happened is that because of this story, now going forward from 1998, more and more people have gone and associated themselves with it. Okay. What was essentially, say, a tribal yatra now has taken the form of a Hindu yatra. So you have people coming not just from, say, tribal backgrounds, but also from non-tribal backgrounds who come and revere this deity and pay their obeisance to both the deities, Samakka and Saralakka. Right? So the rituals related to the goddesses, both of them, are entirely conducted by the Koya tribe in accordance with Koya customs and traditions. Now, if you look at Medavaram, this particular area from where the whole yatra begins, what you find is that this is a very biodiversity rich area. Okay. You have in fact a wildlife sanctuary here wherein you in fact find tigers. Okay. So you're looking at Etur Nagaram Wildlife Sanctuary. Okay. Etur Nagaram Wildlife Sanctuary, through which the river Godavari also passes. So now if I take you back to my discussion, I told you that the Vagu in which the son went and he lost a lot of blood. Yes, the river turned red. That is considered to be one of the tributaries of Godavari. Okay. So Medavaram, located in the Etur Nagaram Wildlife Sanctuary, wherein again you find tigers here, okay? You find holes. It's a very biodiversity rich area, okay? In terms of the forest that you can expect here, it's dry deciduous, which means what kind of trees will I find here, guys? Will I find teak here if it is dry deciduous? Let me know. Let me know if I'll find dry deciduous, which means will I find teak tree here or not? Okay. So now what you find is that this particular yatra was declared as a state festival of Telangana. Okay. In fact, that time's Andhra Pradesh, and right now it has been taken over by Telangana as the state festival. Okay. Once it achieves a national festival or a national heritage status, then that day is not far when it could be considered for a UNESCO heritage also. Why exactly? Because it is related to one of the heritages of mankind, It's a large congregation of people, a large display of faith, of reverence, of unity, How unity? Once again, it was a festival for the tribals. Now, people from all sects of life come together to go ahead and revere and pay their obeisance to the Samakka, Saralakka deities. Okay? So, the largest congregation after Kumbh. Akansha, you're absolutely correct. Good. Right? So, now let's look at the Koya tribe, because the discussion would remain incomplete if we took a look at Koya tribe and what their contribution is towards, say, the rich heritage of the country. Okay. So, in terms of their distribution, you find that they're located in Telangana, Andhra, Chhattisgarh, and Odisha. They speak Koya Bhasha, which is considered to be very close to the Gondi language. Okay. So, it's a Dravidian language, but it's considered to be very close to the Gondi language, and they speak Koya Bhasha. And like I told you, they practice Podu, which is shifting agriculture, which is the reason why you find that Alluri Sitarama Raju and Rampa Rebellion, right, are a part of Koya history of the country. Okay. Now, one important thing that you ought to know is that they keep stone memorials. So, what happens? If you have these particular positions within the Koya community, which are normally taken by the men folk, okay, patriarchal order is followed there. What you find is that once the person passes away, a stone memorial for that particular person at that particular post is erected in the jungles. Okay, a large feast is conducted. People go ahead, celebrate it. They also have mahua liquor, And that is why, to commemorate the life of that individual who dedicated themselves to the service of the Koya community, right? So this is again important characteristic of the Koya tribe, right? So once we have understood the Samakka, Saralakka Yatra and the Koya tribes and the different facets around it, one more thing that you ought to know is that the government of India now has gone ahead and included this entire circuit from Medavaram up until the last destination of the Yatra as part of its tribal circuit developmental program. Okay, so you have large scale. Initially, in fact, you'll be surprised to know that there was not even a road that would connect the entire, say, belt of this Yatra. Now you find, because again, large number of people coming, yes, so the state has gone ahead and created motorable roads, and with intervention from the union government, you can expect that there will be a large scale developmental model, as it is already a part of the tribal circuit developmental program, right? Let's look at it now. Guys, what I will once again request you to do, as you have been doing over the past 6 months with me, in this inaugural class also, please take a moment to go ahead and answer the questions that I have for you, okay? Eventually, it's not just about the explanation, it is also about the application of the explanation, right? So you leave your answers for me in the comment box, and as we always do, we will go ahead and put our spotlight on those individuals who answer the questions correctly in the next class, right? So which of the following rivers passes through the Etur Nagaram Wildlife Sanctuary, which is in Telangana? Krishna, Godavari, Mahanadi, or Tungabhadra? You will let me know in the answer box. Question number 2. Which of the following are positive effects of Podu style of cultivation? Okay. Option 1, temporary deforestation. Option 2, nutrient enrichment of soil. C, both A and B, that is temporary deforestation and nutrient enrichment. Or option D, none of the above. Okay. let me know what your assessment is about the positive effects of Jhumming cultivation or the Jhumming style of cultivation, right? Okay. So before I go forward, once again, as I always go ahead and request my dear audience, my dear students, that early in the morning, uh, it's the whole focus is on learning. Focused is on learning-based outcomes. Okay. So what you're going to do is go ahead and connect with me on my Telegram channel where I share this entire PDF around noon. And if you have any particular questions for me, you have my email ID here on which you can reach out to me. Meanwhile, if you understood the different facets of the Samakka Saralakka Yatra of Telangana, please do not hesitate in leaving me a like. It's the minor happinesses that an educator gets. Okay, right. Let's move on to the second topic from the explain page that I have for you. Now, a topic that you must be aware of. Okay, that you must have gone ahead and understood, or if not, at least heard of. Let's go ahead and understand the Nagorno-Karabakh, and more importantly, I want to focus on the Indian implications of this crisis. Okay, not just say the history of the crisis, which is again important, but the Indian implications insofar as what this means for us. Okay, so let's look at the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. First, the players of this conflict. Okay, so now if you look at it, it's a direct conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Okay, you had a question on this asked in the UPSC 2023 prelims. Now, these are the first players in this conflict. But what you realize is, like any conflict of historical nature, this also has other players that have metamorphosed over time, that have changed shapes and forms over time. Okay, and one of the primary players of this conflict is erstwhile USSR, the present day Russia. Okay, you also have the presence of other stakeholders in this conflict such as Turkey, Pakistan, European Union, and India. We are going to leave out USA because, well, that's assumed that they have a finger in every conflict around the globe. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at what the roles played by each of these particular stakeholders are. First, let's understand what is Nagorno-Karabakh. If it's a revision for you, it's good. If it's the first time for you, don't worry. We'll try and take it from the basics. Now, Nagorno-Karabakh essentially is this particular area. Okay, this particular area. Now, you find that it is in Azerbaijan, but it is considered to be a part of Armenia. Okay, it's an ethnic Armenian conclave in Azerbaijan. Now, the conclave is connected to Armenia through a particular corridor which gains relevance for us from the examination point of view, which is known as the Lachin corridor. Okay, so imagine this. This is Armenia. Okay, this is this narrow corridor. Then you have Azerbaijan, wherein I have Nagorno-Karabakh. Okay, and this is my Lachin corridor. If we have to go ahead and simplify the whole map for ourselves. Now, more importantly, let's look at the history of this place now. So this entire area, if you look at it, from say Tsar Russia, before USSR you had the Tsars. So from the time of Tsars, it has been under Russian influence, if not direct control. Now after the Tsar Russians passed over power to USSR, you found that this particular area was under the direct influence of the Soviets. Now you had the Soviet breakup, the dismantling, the disintegration of the USSR in 1991. Okay, and thus you found that the character of this place also began to change. Okay, the important year for us to consider is 1991, the disintegration of USSR. Okay, so let's go ahead and understand now. First, in 1923, the erstwhile USSR established Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast within the Azerbaijan Soviet Republic, ASSR. Okay, so once again, indirect control, but yes, it's under USSR, right? Now the problem arises not in 1923. All is fine up until 1923, from 1923 to 1991. But in 1991, you have the USSR that gets dismantled, disintegrated, and this particular conclave that I have here, the Nagorno-Karabakh conclave, they declare independence. So what would you expect now? How would Azerbaijan and Armenia both behave? Right? This is what happens. War breaks out. In the first war, you have Armenians who have the upper hand. Okay, Armenians go ahead, not just seize Nagorno-Karabakh, they also go ahead and take an extra bit of territory just because they can. Okay, now thereafter, 1993, Armenians make massive gains, but then comes the other stakeholder. USSR gets involved, okay, and thus you have that times Russia goes and intervenes with the Bishkek Protocol. Okay, truce is called, and eventually it is decided that Bishkek Protocol will go ahead and determine the future course of actions. Okay, how will Nagorno-Karabakh behave? Who will it side with? For the time being is decided by the signing of the Bishkek Protocol. Now, what does the Bishkek Protocol tell me? Essentially, it tells me that you are going to go ahead and eventually ceasefire will be declared. You will have a demilitarized zone, but the Bishkek Protocol is not a peace treaty, by the way. It is not to be understood as a peace treaty. Okay? No. All it is that it goes ahead and maintains status quo. That go ahead, cease fire, let's figure out a way ahead. Okay? But does that happen? No. The problem is still unresolved. Azerbaijan does not forget the humiliation of the first war of Nagorno-Karabakh. Because again, Armenia was the one that was winning. Right? So you have this entire simmering anger from the Azerbaijan side, and eventually you have a 4-day war that breaks out in 2016, and more importantly in 2020, and thereafter you are looking at an increased level of hostilities. Why? Once again, because Azerbaijan now has got not just the support of USSR, but also the support of Turkey and the other support of Pakistan. They have got the better weapons, they have got the better backing, and thus they are able to go ahead and reverse those problems of the first war and thus gain an upper hand in this whole conflict. Okay, so now let's look at the historical ties of India with both of these entities. Why? Once again, the focus of our discussion is going to be the implications for India out of this whole conflict. What are the implications for us? Where do we figure in this conflict? Now, if you go ahead and look at the history of it, okay, Assyrian Queen Semiramis, she was the first one who made contact with India when she invaded India in 2000 BC. You also have folklore of Indian settlers in Armenia who were established by two princes, Ganesh and Krishna, who were escaping Kannauj, okay, prior to 150 BC, in 149 BC. So you had these ancient linkages that straight away started developing between India and Armenia. So much so that when you find that building on this initial contact, there is closer integration between India and Armenia during the Mughal rule. Okay, one of Akbar's wives, in fact, is considered to be of Armenian descent. Okay, thus you had Armenians who found a special place in the court. Why? Because again, ladki wale ke side se, right? You also had the fact that Armenians now had more people-to-people contact with India, which is why you find that today, in present-day India, you find Armenian communities across the whole country. Okay, right from Chennai, Mumbai, Hyderabad, the major metropolises, they are present. But chiefly, you find that the Armenian population is highest in Kolkata, the community population at least. Okay, so thus you find that, well, India-Armenia contact is quite close. It's a very close relationship, a historical relationship that both these countries share. Now let's go ahead and compare it to the India-Azerbaijan sort of relations. Now it is not as historically deep as we would like it to be. Okay. In fact, what you find is that the 18th century Ateshgah fire temple, which is in Baku, okay, you find there that has inscriptions in both Gurumukhi and Devanagari. Okay, so this is the earliest touch base, the touch point of Indian-Azerbaijani contact is found. But then, when you come to contemporary, say, modern world, okay, what you find is that the two countries have taken two different roads. Okay, they have diverged and gone to two different paths altogether. Okay, now what you find is that Azerbaijan does not support India's key rights. In fact, its assertion that Kashmir is an integral part of the Republic of India. Azerbaijan, in fact, sides on the Pakistan claim. Okay. You also find that Azerbaijan is not too warm when it comes to, again, backing India's claims for a permanent UNSC seat. Right? Why is that again? Because, well, Azerbaijan and Pakistan both share a very close relationship. Okay. Both are again Muslim majority countries. Armenians, a Christian majority country. So they are again on the board of the OIC. Yes, the Organization for Islamic Cooperation alongside Turkey, which is why you find that they are not very cozy to the Indian idea of getting a seat on the high table. Right? So which is why you find that in terms of people to people engagement or government to government engagement, both sides, okay, India and Azerbaijan lack contact. It is for good reason. If you have been watching these particular, say, TV series, you will often find that the capital of Azerbaijan, Baku, it is often shown as a place where most of these murders and all of these terrorist activities and negotiations are going on, you know. So again, if you correlate with that, it is to do with the fact that both the countries share an uneasy relationship, if not a completely openly hostile relationship. Okay. So you find that this is the only historical linkage that we find. But going forward, the present day. So in terms of India-Armenia, we have a treaty level relationship. Okay. It's one of the highest levels of relationship two countries can share. Whereas in case of India-Azerbaijan, there's none of that. Which is why we do not receive their heads of state, or at least we have not got the opportunity, neither have they. Okay. The last head of state, if you may so consider, to visit Azerbaijan was Jawaharlal Nehru in the year 1961. After that, you have had, say, vice presidents and ministers who have attended particular programs in Baku, Azerbaijan, but that has been at the level of summits only, say the non-aligned movement summit. Okay. Whereas in case of India-Armenia, the integration, as I told you, is not just closer at the people-to-people level, but also at the government-to-government level. Right. Now, where is the Indian implication for this? Obviously, this is an uneasy relationship that we share. In terms of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, yes, you find India has taken almost a definitive side by going and arming Armenia with Pinaka rocket launchers. Okay, close to 250 million US dollars of ammunition was supplied to Armenia. Whereas Turkey, on the other hand, alongside Pakistan, has gone ahead and supplied Baikatur drones to Azerbaijan, which were essentially a very key factor in this whole conflict and how Azerbaijan has the upper hand now. Okay. You also find that Turkish companies have gone ahead and refused to sell drones or invest in drone technology in India. Why again? Because they share a close relationship with Pakistan, which means that they cannot have a close relationship with India. Right? So this is the current day situation between these three entities. Now, in terms of implications, the most obvious implication that comes to my mind is that of the international north-south trade corridor. Okay, a trade corridor that seeks to connect Mumbai to Russia. Okay, India to Russia is the whole point of this trade corridor, essentially giving India an access to market not just in the Russian territory, but also in the European Union. Okay. So what you find is that both Armenia and Azerbaijan are a part of the international north-south trade corridor or transport corridor. Okay. Now what India wants to do is include Iran's Chabahar port in INSTC. But because of the troubles in this area, the Azerbaijan and Armenia conflict and the other stakeholders in this whole entire process, there is a fair chance that INSTC may not see the immediate light of the day. Yes, we have had dry runs that have been conducted, but eventually you must realize that a transport corridor or a trade corridor, the best benefit and it can only be fully harnessed if there is peace and stability in the region. That is an essential prerequisite to having closer trade ties. Now, this particular trade tie may get affected because of the Nagorno-Karabakh crisis and obviously the other stakeholders who have got their own finger in the pie, right? So this is essentially the Indian connotation of the Nagorno-Karabakh crisis. Now let's go ahead and look at the questions that I have for you, right? Which of the following countries is not a part of the international north-south transport corridor? Option 1, Iran. Option 2, Ukraine. Option 3, Turkey. option for Sweden, right? What I want you to do is go ahead and take a look at this map. If you take a look at this map and go ahead and trace the countries yourself, that will be a better exercise than going and Googling this entire answer, okay? Eventually, mapping, guys, my friends, is a continuous process. You can't ace mapping in 7 to 10 days before the examination, then hope to reproduce it verbatim. You have to do it continuously, which is why my suggestion is take 5 minutes, attempt to trace the countries through which this entire transport corridor passes, and then look at the atlas and corroborate how many of them you got correct, how many of them you got wrong, right? Go ahead and attempt this and let me know the answers in the comment box. Right, before I take you to the last topic that I have for you, my friends, firstly, once again, let me go ahead, take 2. Please consider leaving me a like if you haven't so already, okay? If there is any change that you would like insofar as the Indian Express Explain series is concerned, well, my students are my best critics and my best friends here. So I'd expect you to go ahead and let me know your suggestions in the comment box, okay? Meanwhile, if you're resonating with the way we approach topic here, this topical analysis, thematic analysis that we do is the focus of the Prelims to Interview program that has been launched and has been in place by StudyIQ IAS, okay? I'm associated with the English and the English team. And what you can do is, if you're preparing for, not just next year, but also for the year after that, okay, go ahead and engage with this course because this comes with a particular validity. Validity essentially means that you can go ahead and access the entire course, including the recorded lectures, the questions, the PPTs, the answer writing modules, okay, the doubt sessions that have been conducted. All of them are available for you for a particular span of time. More importantly, you go ahead and get your books additional cost, but you get it part of this course too, okay? So go ahead and first look at the deliverables of this course because right now is October. It's the last time, After this, if you prepare, you're running a race against time. So go ahead. If you're preparing for next year, hoping to appear for next year, this is the right time to start. And thus, you'd be best advised to go ahead and seek guidance if you're not sure of how to go about this entire process, right? Make sure that you use the code BA Live. Many students have done that. They have been allotted to my batch. We have been taking this continuous journey together. Physical geography, Indian geography. I essentially start with geography for a particular batch. And so you've done a lot of good work there, So newcomers will be best suggested to go ahead and engage with this entire program. Right. Now, before I take you forward, my friends, the third topic that I have for you comes from the Indian Express once again. And this is to do with a very interesting topic because here you find that from the mains perspective, the topic that I'm going to discuss, the succession of Dalai Lama, okay, the succession of His Holiness the Dalai Lama is a topic from the mains perspective that requires you to have knowledge, say, not just of basic IR, in fact, intensive IR, but also a little bit of knowledge about, say, the spiritual angle. A little bit of information about Buddhism, the different schools of Buddhism, Hinayana, Mahayana, will go a long way in helping you understand the entire focus of the succession of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Now, what you find is that of late, you found that a boy, okay, who has been again chosen, he has been found in Mongolia. Now, what is the process? Firstly, let's understand this. In Mongolia, what happened was that there is this small kid, okay. Now, his parents take him to a particular monastery, okay. So now as kids, say around 7 to 8 years old, now those times kids are normally fidgety, okay. They're not very, say, patient. Now these sets of parents, say around 10 kids are there in a room, 10 kids are there. And so various objects are placed in the room. So you have, say, chocolates, candies, toys, and then you have religious beads and things of importance that are of importance in the Buddhist religion, Buddhism, okay. Now, this particular kid, most of the kids, firstly, out of the 10 kids, say around 5 or 6 refuse to leave their parents' side. They don't want to go ahead and explore. Some of them go ahead and look at the candies, pick out the candies as, say, any normal kid would do, okay. And then you have this particular kid who ignores all of that and then goes and picks the things of religious significance that are placed amongst them. Okay, he shows a specific affinity towards Buddhist religion, Buddhism, as well as the objects, the artifacts of Buddhism. Okay, and thus you find here is this particular line, very important in fact, that you must have a look. You find that this particular kid has been named and understood as the 10th incarnation of the Bogd. Okay, Bogd, which is essentially to be understood and pronounced as Bogged. Okay, so what is the Bogd? It is one of the most important figures in Tibetan Buddhism, right? The spiritual leader of Mongolia, in fact. Now, once this kid is gone and said, he's eventually, okay, this is my kid, this is my Bogd, right? His identity is kept a secret. Why again? Because he's still a kid. You don't want to go ahead and put unnecessary pressure on the kid. So his particular identity is kept as a secret. And this keeping of the secret, that is known as Jeptun Sama Khutugdu. Okay? Go ahead and I'm going to write it down for you. It is known as Jeptum Damba Khutugdu. Okay? This secret of the boy, this identity of the boy is kept as a secret. Now, earlier this year, in March, okay, you have the Dalai Lama, His Holiness. He goes ahead and introduces this boy in front of the whole world. Okay. Now, what you find is that, well, Dalai Lama is the spiritual leader of Tibetan Buddhists. Now, such is the assertion about this kid becoming the next Dalai Lama. Okay. Because again, he is the chosen one of sorts. Such is his relevance that you find that China gets uneasy. Okay, China is uneasy. Why? Because Tibet is a region that is of immense importance to it, that it has tried hard to overpower by quelling the Tibetan revolution. You have had India, that is the largest home of Tibetan refugees. Okay. So you find that to keep Tibet under its control, it knows that China needs to go ahead and control the Tibetan Buddhism. Which is why you have Mongolian authorities who have said that they have faced pressures from China to keep this particular kid as far away from His Holiness the Dalai Lama is concerned. Right? Now please understand another facet of this discussion. China has a particular law. Okay? It's a codified law under China. Okay, which says that the next representative of Tibetan Buddhism must be confirmed by the Chinese authorities. What does that tell you? That this is again the gross interference of the state in the religious, the spiritual dealings of a particular religion. Okay. Now, why does China want to do that? Because once again, it knows that its control over Tibet is codependent on control of Tibetan Buddhism. Okay, which is why you find that this whole influx of the Han population who go ahead and practice a different sort of Buddhism as opposed to the Tibetan Buddhisms. The Han population from mainland China, if you were to so consider, are now incentivized to go ahead and settle in Lhasa, the capital, or erstwhile capital of Tibetan kingdom. Yes, the famous Potala Palace. Okay. The famous Potala Palace is in Lhasa. This also is currently under the control of Chinese authorities, monks who are backed by Chinese authorities, right? So the succession of His Holiness the Dalai Lama is a key issue, right? Up until now, you find that China has been extremely vociferous, very loud, insofar as asserting that, well, the next Dalai Lama, the 15th Dalai Lama, if you would so consider, will come from its own territory. Whereas you have the current spiritual leader, the 14th Dalai Lama, based out of Dharamshala. He says that, well, India is my home and the next spiritual leader will eventually come from India. Then you also have America, where that has gone ahead and codified a law saying, well, any particular representative of the Tibetan Buddhism or Tibetan Buddhists must conform to the ideas and the acceptance of large number of Tibetan Buddhists. So do you realize that this is a potentially contentious issue? Yes, you have not just China, which is the primary player, under whose domain lies Tibet, for which it will do everything and anything possible. Then you have India, the largest home of Tibetan Buddhists, refugees. Okay. And then you have America, which finds that most of the Tibetan Buddhists, the refugees in India, eventually they are migrating out because again, India is not a signatory to the Refugee Convention, which means that as Tibetan Buddhists, they lack certain rights that are available to, say, the normal citizens, which is why you find that Tibetan Buddhists from India are now migrating out of India, moving to other countries where they are assured rights. So what does that mean is the question I have for you today. What does that mean for the future of, say, Tibetan Buddhists in India? Question 1. Okay. What role should India play insofar as the next Dalai Lama is concerned? Number 2. Why again? Because you find that India up until now has said, well, it is the internal matter of the Tibetan Buddhists and they shall be the first ones and the only ones to go ahead and take a decision on this. But when you find that China is so vociferous about it, America also has started to play its own role in this particular problem, can India afford to remain silent? Question number 2. Okay. And question number 3. What will eventually remain of the Tibetan Buddhists in India, considering that India is not a signatory to the Refugee Convention of 1954? Okay. These are the 3 questions I want you to ponder over, because eventually any question in the mains will ask you to interlink essentially both the IR angle, the spiritual angle, as well as the geopolitical angle insofar as these 3 stakeholders are concerned. Obviously, the primary stakeholder being our Tibetan people. Right? So that is the question I have for you. Meanwhile, you will go ahead and answer this for me in the comment box, my friends. Which of the following schools of Buddhism is Holiness the Dalai Lama associated with? Is he with Mahayana? Is he with Hinayana? Is he with both Mahayana and Hinayana? Or is he with neither Mahayana or Hinayana? Okay. A very basic question, but well, you often find that UPSC does not go ahead and ask you the higher thoughts. It's the basic thoughts where students get caught out. So you let me know the answer to this in the comment box. Right? That concludes this inaugural class of the Indian Express Explained, where we take a look at the explain page of Indian Express, as well as questions that arise out of it, and more importantly, the other topics that you might miss will be covered in this 1-hour discussion, close to 45 to 1-hour discussion on StudyIQ English. Let me know if it was of benefit to you, if it was informative. If you would like to suggest any changes to this entire format, go ahead and let me know that too in the comment box. It's the inaugural class. Go ahead and make yourself heard, my friends. And if you enjoyed this discussion, if it was of benefit to you, please do consider leaving me a like and sharing it with those of your friends who will find this class useful. Right? Till I see you tomorrow morning with another set of topics from the explain page, as well as those students who answered today's questions correctly. This is Bhuvan Apurva signing off for StudyIQ IAS English. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Thanks for watching.